Okay, the way this is going, if you follow along, you're going to end up with a thunderbolt. So anyway, what we're doing here today on this particular video is the landing gear plates. And I didn't show how the rib inserts were done because Bob Hunt did these wings for me, but at a later date I'll show you how these ribs are done. But today we're going to make the plate that goes inside there. The first thing you need to do is you have to take some aircraft plywood, that's what I use, as the base, and you have to cut it to shape. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of 1/8" wire, and we're going to glue that 1/8" wire, tack it. Of course the glue bottle is stopped up. It's going to be time for me to get some more glue. So anyway, we'll do it this way. We're going to just tack it to this right in the center. Hit it with a little kicker. And then I'm going to use light ply. Now, some guys use basswood or whatever, but you want to run it, you don't want the grain to run lengthways with the wire. You want it to run fore and aft so that it's end grain up against the wire. And here again, some guys say, well, you got to epoxy this. I've always just C8'd it and have had good luck with it. And then we're going to want to cut this out. So we're going to break out the wire. And then I'm going to go over to the bandsaw and cut this up. So give me a second. I'll probably edit this out. Now we have that first piece on there, and it doesn't look all that great, but it will. Put the wire back, and then we're going to butt up the next piece at end grain and glue it on. And then cut it out. So it didn't take very long to make this plate, what I'm getting at. So I'll cut this now and then we'll sand it up. So here's the rough plate. You can see it's rough, and we'll just take it on the belt sander. And true it all up. And there's the landing gear plate. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to clean off the face of this because it's not real pretty. Make sure the wire fits, and it fits snugly, and it does. We're going to need a door. Now I don't have a whole lot of wood left, so I believe I have enough to mill out a couple of doors here. And the reason why you want to cut the door before you put this all together is you're going to drill the holes through the door. So let's mark this out and we'll cut it up. Yeah. So how do I want to do this to get the most out of it? I guess this way. I'm going to have to restock my supplies. It seems like I've been building way too many airplanes. I don't have anything left anymore. When I go to Wix, I buy my 1/8 inch plywood and a 2 foot by 4 foot selection. I don't have that anymore. I have none. This is it, out of 2 foot by 4 foot. That's all I got left. Now you don't want to make 2 of these and 2 of these because each side is specific. I'm not sure that these are exactly the same from inboard to outboard. They're close, but we want exact. Okay, I've made it the same size as this piece. However, we're going to have to sand this piece smaller because when it goes in, when this block goes in, we're going to put up some wood in this direction, so this door will have to be smaller in order for it to fit. But we do want it to be the same size so we can get everything exact. Okay, now I gotta figure out how to get it out of there. There we go. Alright, now we're going to need a piece of maple for the landing gear wire to go into. So, and we want it right on this piece right here, and it would probably be best, except that I can't drill it that way. So we're going to have to do it this way. We'll mark it and cut it on the table saw. So we want to make sure that it's right on that rib right there, because we want it all glued together. So we'll mark it there. Mark it there. Draw a line across. Kind of at an angle, but is that right? That is correct, it's at an angle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue this piece like this onto this piece. It's at a slight angle, but you can see that it's at a slight angle here. But we want this block right up against the carrier rib inside there. If you don't, you know, it's useless. So we're going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy. And set that in place, and we'll cut the camera while that's drying. I should actually, before I do this, drill the holes. I think I will. We'll drill the holes. So we're going to be right here. Right here with an 1/8 inch. And then we're going to be right here. Now I used to put 4 bolts in these doors, but there isn't any need for it. 2 bolts is plenty. And then before we put this on, we're going to glue our top piece on and cut the holes in that, and that way they're perfect. So give me a few minutes and I'll be back. Okay, what I've done here is I've glued the block on for the wood, and I've drilled the holes. Well, as I told you, I drilled them in the wrong spot. You want the the hole that's next to the landing gear away from it, so you want it behind, but I drilled it ahead. I wasn't thinking. So I just plugged them with some balsa wood and floated in some CA, sanded it off. So now what we're doing is we're getting the pieces ready to assemble. I'm going to mark this glue so I don't glue it on backwards by mistake, which is easy to do, as drilling those holes. But I drilled this plate here and this so it matches. So now I'm going to put in some hardware. We're going to use aluminum screws and blind nuts. Of course, we need some washers. We got a new sponsor on the forum and Control Line Craftsman. That's the fasteners button you see in the post. That's where I get my fasteners from. It used to be Micro Fasteners, but this is the manufacturer. These are the people that make the parts, so you get them a little cheaper and faster. So we're going to install this stuff here. Then we're going to drill our hole for the 1/8" wire, which I've started. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Remember, if you build along with me, you're going to end up with a thunderbolt. If you do all of the processes that I do. And I'll give you a rundown on where to buy the material. The wing came from Bob Hunt, as I stated earlier. He'll cut you a geobolt wing. You can get it with or without the leading edge installed. I always just felt that it would be better to have the leading edge molded than it would be to scab on a piece of wood. So now we've installed those. We're going to take the bolts out. Now, first I'll drill this hole. We're going to take the bolts out, and we're going to epoxy this piece in. I want to show something else here. When I got this piece of hardwood mounted to this block, I took it on the disc sander and I sanded this angle on it. And you wouldn't think, well, why would you do that? Well, the only reason I did that is to save a little weight. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but if you do this enough times, the airplane's lighter. It's very negligible in that one piece. You would never be able to weigh that. But if you do it 100 times, you know, you might save an ounce, depending. So let's see where we are here. We need the key. Put the 1/8" bit back in it. and that'll be plenty for the wire to sit in, so that's good. Make sure that we got that. Got some glue in there. Yeah. That's a good thing. And then I'll grind a little bevel in it, but I won't do that now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to install this piece. So we'll mix up some epoxy. Looks like I'm going to have to buy some more, 100 more popsicle sticks. Kind of running short on those. Go ahead and mix up some epoxy, and you want to be generous on this because this is taking a lot of pressure. Try not to make a mess. Get it on the plywood doubler there. Keep the epoxy off the wing. God, what a mess that would make. Now we want to make sure that this right here gets a good bond, so I'm going to go ahead and add some epoxy there. And don't forget to epoxy your blind nuts in. That would be nothing short of disaster to have one of those blind nuts come off when your wing's all together. And that's it. It's epoxied in. We'll frame it up on the outside. And that's it. We're done. I have to make the cover. But this is a nice way of doing things. So, be back in a minute when the epoxy dries. Okay, the next action of this is to put the fence up around it. Now I've chosen some 1/8 inch that I'm going to stand up end grain to this, and I take my CA bottle and we're going to wick it down on there and make sure that it fits nicely. Remember, when you're making these airplanes, you got so much money and so much time involved that you might as well do it perfect. So we force it down until it's touching, and then we're going to glue the skin. Then you're going to glue it to the